number 33. If everybody could turn in your book. Because ain't that worse than when your son wants to know why his daddy doesn't love him no more. That would be Tupac. Yeah, my other baby's father from when I was, younger.
Yes.
I don't have much more to say than that, because that is the epitome of chapter 7. Like, that's what is discussed all throughout. I did a lot of underlining, but golly, how do you explain to your child, they're looking at you through their eyes, why their dad doesn't show them the love that they deserve? I remember I did post one time, Bryson is the best. And for those that don't check to see, you'll never know.
Right.
And that's on you. That ain't on me, because the door is open. But once you come and you get in front of that door and you like stacking bricks in front of the door that I've opened, it's going to be difficult for you to see in. And then it's going to be so high and it's bricked, you ain't going to be able to break it down. And that's, okay. No.
I want us to talk about 3 things in particular from this chapter.
Okay.
If we don't talk about nothing else, because I don't know if I could pick a favorite chapter. And I know I've said, all the chapters are important to me for whatever reason. This is a big one for me though, because this has been probably 85-90% of my fight as a single mom. One of the things that I want to talk about is the defense of the well-presented man. And what I mean when I thought Adrian was about to say.
Yeah, I was going to say, repeat it again. I thought you was going to say it again. I was going to have to write it down.
I had to write it down and remember to be able to ask y'all. The defense of the well-presented man. What I mean when I say that, when you have situations when the baby daddy is dude slanging on the corner, or dude who is, still deep in the streets hanging out with his boys, he ain't really at a maturity level, he's still trying to kick it, he ain't trying to be a dad. When you have those type of situations, it's easy for people to believe, or not even believe, they already assume why he's not doing what he's supposed to be doing. Not many questions asked when you have that type of character. But when you have a well-groomed, well-educated man who presents himself to the world as a man who upholds the Black family, who upholds Black empowerment, who upholds motivating children, entrepreneurship, breaking generational curses. When you have that baby daddy, not many people believe you when you say you are not the problem. You're automatically the problematic baby mama, because when I look at this picture of a well-presented man, what other reason do he have not to be the dad that he's supposed to be for your child? That has been a big part of my plight as a baby mama, because when people find out, it blows their mind, because, oh my God, not him. You gotta be the crazy baby mama, because this dude got it together. This dude is a family man. He loves, his other kids, his stepchild. Like, he got his stuff together. He's doing stuff in the community. He's helping other moms, motivate their young boys. And he's, speaking to children. He's all about children and building them up. And like I said, breaking generational curses, got a whole book about it, So when you're up against that personality, or that persona, I should say, most people will believe him when he says, you're the crazy baby mama that I can't deal with. And you're the reason why I don't do what I'm supposed to do by my child. So I need us to talk about that even just for a little bit while we're on.
I think it goes back to that facade, because you want to make sure that you're in the right light. You know, there's always three sides to every story: his side, her side, and the truth.
Right.
And when you only giving your truth, whether it's distorted or not, to your friends, and that's what they're going to believe. When you're portraying yourself as one figure, when everybody behind the scenes know who you are, your mask going to end up coming off. I don't care if it takes 40, 45, 50 years, but the mask is going to come off and it's going to come out. But it's the facade to keep up with the Joneses, to keep up appearances. No offense to anybody named Jones or anybody ever named Jones before. I mean, I'm just saying, but but I'm just saying, it's about keeping that facade up. You have to, because you've lived a life of so many lies, or even a time of so many lies, that it's hard to break away from them lies. Because when you tell the truth, you got to go back and fix all those lies.
Yes.
That's what we tell our kids. You got to tell one lie to cover the other lie. And once the lie gets so big, you need to write a book about it.
Yeah! Breaking generational curses, but at the same time, you're creating one.
Creating. But you're creating it behind the scenes. You're creating it in the dark. And since people are okay with what they do in the dark, they're scared that it's not going to come to light. But you can't sit there and write words and your mind and your conscience not tell you what your truth is. It is slowly eating away at who you are. You might not see it right now, but I tell you, it's slowly eating away at who you are. And I've seen it happen with grown men before, and then they end up losing it.
I don't need to say nothing else because she said all of that.
She preached
She
it.
did that. Because I'm telling you, just reading that, it just took me to a place, not a good place. Like, because, I knew some things. I've seen some things with my own eyes, as you spoke of about motivating other children and mamas with my own eyes. And it's like, are you kidding me? Like,
I'm sorry. I have a confession to make. I ain't using no names, but I have to tell you that I was guilty of singing them songs. And then when I saw the cover, I said, we won't sing that in this class no more. And my kids was like, why? Cut it out. Don't sing it. But I also have to say that it's about those expectations too. And when I say expectations, I mean in the opposite vein. And I know this kind of goes off of the defense because I feel like we touched on that a little bit. Trash. Sorry, I'm talking to my son. Forgot we were recording, talking to my son. But the expectation is that the mother is going to always do what she needs to do for her child. Mm-hmm. So no matter what he doing over here, how many things he got going on, you're going to do what you got to do to raise your child. And you do. And you did.
Right. Absolutely. You said something that I think is important that we point out for anybody else who may be still in that space. You said that, if that person is keeping up that facade, but they're not, living that life, honestly living the life that they present, eventually it comes back in one way or the other, and they have to deal with that. One of our very best friends would always tell me that because of her being a baby mama before who had been through it ahead of me. And she would tell me, don't worry, it'll catch up with him. Eventually, he'll have to deal with all the lies he's told, all the excuses he's made. Eventually, it'll catch up with him. But when you are such a broken person and in such a broken and defeated place, it's so hard to latch on to that because all I wanted to know was when. How is it that he gets to make all these excuses? I'm always the scapegoat. Meanwhile, our child is, growing up and continuing to be emotionally infected. But it looks like he gets to live his life. He gets to go on. He gets to have all these accomplishments. It looks golden from the outside. And I know, everything that glitters ain't gold. But when you're in that space where it looks like your life has come to a complete halt and you're dealing with all these struggles, I was the epitome of struggling baby mama. When you're dealing with all that and it looks like he's living a dream, like it's hard to believe that eventually he's, every dog will have his day. He's going to have his just due. Now, of course, after I've done a lot of work, that comforts me. I can see it. I can't see whether or not he's experiencing that right now, but in my deepest self, I believe that even if I leave this world having never seen it for myself, I know that God has not forgotten me and my child. And I know that one of our most important roles in this life on this earth is raising the children that he blessed us with. And when you don't do right in that vein, then there are consequences. And so even if I don't ever get to see it, I know that you're gonna get your just due. And now I'm okay with that. Now that comforts me. Now I'm emotionally clear enough to where I can say that, or somebody can say that to me and I can agree with it and I can truly receive it. When I was in the middle of it, that did not comfort me at all, because I just felt like I didn't see it. So I didn't believe it. All I saw was he living his life. He kicking it. He getting to travel. Him and his family taking, vacations every year. And he coming in town on a regular basis. And he ain't even trying to see my child. It was so in my face. And so I couldn't see when our friend would say, don't worry, he gonna get his. I didn't want to hear that. I was like, but that. I want him to have it now, and I want a front row seat. Because that was my true emotion when I was in that space. So I wanted us to make sure that we talked about that in this chapter, because if there is anybody who has experienced even half of what I have experienced with having your child completely disregarded, and you having to seemingly watch the other person continue to live their life without any repercussion, just hold on. Just hold on. Continue to work on yourself. Continue to think about your children and your stability for you and them, and let God do what he does best.
Yes. Vengeance is mine, said the Lord.
Okay. Might not ever see it.
Hey, you might not ever see it, but no. As long as you live in your life for your children and the things that you need to do that are right and just, and you ain't trying to start no mess with nobody else's life, I'm telling you, because you can't be dirty and think that dirt ain't gonna come back to you. Let them be out there doing dirt, because it's gonna come back to them. And all right, but
you're right. And this is not chapter 7, it's at the end of chapter 6, but you just made me think of it. And we can move on from this topic, but that's important. That's important, that you can't be doing dirt. You can't be so caught up in trying to get back.
mm-hmm.
That ain't how God works. God don't bless no mess, as the church people say. So you can't get caught up in trying to play that tick for tat game. You got to make a decision that I want to do what's right for me and my child, whether, nobody may ever know. Sometimes it was real hard for me not to get on social media and not blast him and, not tell anybody who would listen. but I had to make an intentional decision that it wasn't about that. It wasn't about, him continuing to tell people that we knew mutually that I was the issue, or people who didn't know me but knew them and may have heard of the other child. I was always the issue. I had to come to my own agreement with myself that I can no longer use him as an excuse. I got to be accountable not only for my own part in the fact that we even have a child, but also for my own part in my own healing. We talked about accountability before, and that's what you made me think of. Like, I wrote, accountability cannot wait on the other person. I had to decide that I can't wait on him. I can't wait on God to show me that he's going to get his just due. I can't wait on him to change his mind about doing right. It shows up to the party with you. That's what I had to come to understand. I got to be accountable for where me and Jaden are going to end up.
And this is probably going to be the most unpopular statement for a conversation of this magnitude. And the word that resonated with me, the word that popped into my head was forgiveness. And I know that forgiveness is one of the hardest things to give to the people who hurt you the most.
Yes, ma'am.
I will say that I know firsthand that extending forgiveness gives you a peace that nothing else can.
Absolutely.
And I don't know if that's in other chapters, but that's what popped in my head when you were talking about what you've gone through. That forgiveness piece is big.
It's huge. And I can be completely transparent and say almost, well, not every, I won't say every session because that would be lying, but I have had a lot of sessions where I have been like, I ain't there yet. I ain't there yet.
And you have every right to say that. You have every right.
Right. Like, that's the human part of me. And now I'm in a place to where I can give myself that grace to say, I'm not there yet, and be okay.
Yeah.
I'm working on it. I'm working towards it, because
I was just about to say that.
I know how important it is. And we know that forgiveness is more for us than it is for the other person. And you got to get to a place to where you can forgive the person, even if you never get the apology. Yeah. I'm working on it. I can say that. I can minister to the next person, but in full transparency, I'm not there yet. I still get angry, because one of the things that I tell people whenever I'm engaged in a conversation about forgiveness, because that's where that judgment kick in. I was talking to another friend, like, some people will try to judge you because they feel like you should be over this already. It's been 17 years. Why you ain't over it yet? One of the things that make forgiveness hard for me personally is it's like scraping off a sore that's trying to heal. If the actions are continuously happening, it's hard. It's hard to move on. It's hard to completely heal if somebody is continuing to tear off the scab, And so that, go ahead.
You know what that therapy is? Neosporin.
Oh, come on now.
Peroxide. I mean, I'm for real, because it's not going to heal overnight.
For the people. Paint the picture for the people, baby.
It's not going to heal overnight. It is a constant healing. It might be the stitches. You trying to bind it, and then one of them things pop. You know what I'm saying? Obviously, that's happened to me. Figuratively and literally. So, I mean, for real. You got to be real with yourself, and you can't fake it, because if you fake forgiveness, it ain't forgiveness.
Right.
It's again a facade, and now you wearing a mask. I mean, I know we're all wearing masks, but you know what I mean. I know I ain't got no sense.
You're right, though. That preached. That was a great analogy.
That was good.
So that was one. Tell us what your next one was. You had 3 points you wanted us to touch on.
And I'm ready to write. Go on, girl.
So I wrote down I talked about, so the reason why I chose the Tupac quote, that's one of I love that song. I mean, who don't love that song? But it resonated for me because one of the things that I often came up against and found myself fighting, even internally, to be honest, is the decision to be honest with Jaden about the actions of his dad. So I wrote down that I wanted us to talk about the love benchmark, because I think I won't even say in our community, because I think it's probably a human, behavioral issue, or, but of course there's always a debate, kind of like abortion. With abortion, it's always going to be it's always a debate. It's always going to be pros and cons, for and against. Like, that's going to be forever. And I feel like this is one of those topics too. Like, some people feel like you shouldn't be honest with your child about that absent parent. And I have gotten a lot of backlash for making the decision to be honest with Jaden about the fact of how his relationship is with his dad is not right. But the reason why I made that decision is because, one, I'm raising a Black man. They already up against their, inherited disadvantages just simply because they're brown skin. And also, as a male, they often don't get raised in being comfortable in emotional spaces and being emotionally stable. And what I didn't want was for him to become an adult and be emotionally unstable, have a higher likelihood of repeating, what was done to him. So I wanted to, for me, it was so important, probably the most important thing, that he understood what love looked like, feels like, how it moved. I wanted that benchmark for love to be set for him. And a lot of people feels like you shouldn't, say negative things about the other parent. Now, of course, I feel like, there has to be boundaries. I've never been the personality to just go off the hinge, talking and talking bad about, his dad in front of him, and, going off and just not caring about his feelings, because that's still his dad. At the end of every day, that's still his dad. And so I knew not to do that. But at the same time, I needed him to understand, I'm never going to tell you your dad doesn't love you. I don't know that. I'm not him. What I can tell you is what you see, the actions, that's not the actions of love. But a lot of people don't agree with that. They feel like, to me, I felt like people wanted me to protect his dad. I don't owe you that protection. You don't deserve that protection. What's important to me is that my child not only know what to accept from people, but also I need to help him establish that healthy moral compass for how he treat people. So I want to know your position on the debate of the love benchmark, and how do you proceed, or how would you proceed, even if you're not a single mom? What's your view? What's your take on the love benchmark? That's what I have titled it, the love benchmark.
I can't take it on the single mom point of view. I can take it as the child who's raised by her mom, by herself, and how I think that children are capable, at their age, the appropriate age, of course, to take in things differently. Like with me, my mom was that dirty, low down, some all the time, right? But then she'll say, oh, my girl's so beautiful, all this and that. And then she'll be like, ooh, that low down, dirty dog, I can't stand him, his ugly behind, blah, blah, blah. And then she'll look at me and she'll like, you sure do like your dad. And I'm like, so, what does that mean? You know? But I also knew my mother, and that sometimes it was hard for me to communicate and get along with and understand some of the things. Maybe that was possibly things that was issues with them, because there was no talking communication about what happened. I didn't get anything completely until I got old enough, right? So it's good to get that information straight up, because why not? I mean, he's not there. All your child's going to do is have a bunch of assumptions, a bunch of hopes and dreams, or who maybe, or why is my dad not here? What I do? What happened? I remember him being there, but now he's not there. What happened? You know? So I don't see there being an issue with you expressing it in a way. There's no different than you telling your child about the people who are not nice to them and why they treat them this way and that way in everyday life. You got to come at them and let them know, like it is. It's no different. Because if this person is not in your life on a daily basis, then they're going to go off on their own tangent, or you can tell them like it is. And in the end, they'll know. So it won't have that question, that doubt, or those, if I run away, maybe I can go live with so-and-so, and then they go off and find him and they realize he is completely what your mama said he was. Okay? So I don't agree that you should sugarcoat it. You should anything, especially at the 13s and 14-year-olds. By that time, half of them already got grown people life sometimes, and for the same reasons why for the reason that maybe their father or mother's not there, it was because that's why they went out to try to find love somewhere else. You need to talk to your child. I don't have any problem with that at all. So as a child raised by their mother, I don't see why you shouldn't communicate. So I agree.
Adrian, if you're talking, dear, you are so muted.
My bad. I was saying I agree as well. And the way you approach it plays a huge part in it, because you have those parents that don't say anything. You have those that say things and they're bashing and downplaying. And to me, when Denise was explaining it, it made sense. It's like there is no win-win situation, because the child is still hurt. They're hurt if you don't say anything or acknowledge it. They're hurt if you bash them. Even they're hurt if you explain it. So this is not what love should look like. Mm-hmm. So I think when you, like you said so well in your book, when you are raising this human being that has to get out there and one day formulate, have their own relationships, their own marriage and families down the line, you want them to understand and know what love looks like. And a lot of times in our community, we don't show those examples. We forget that they need examples. It's no different than the children that we're teaching and working with. They need examples. We model, in certain areas, but in certain areas we don't. And then we're wondering why, if we think about finances, my parent never taught me about that. And then we get off of college and get these credit cards, and it's like, oh Lord, no one told me. If we don't teach them what it's supposed to look like, what it shouldn't look like, then it opens the door to things like, situations like this, or they get in abusive relationships because they don't know what love should look like. So I have no problem even raising my stepdaughter. We never bashed, to a certain extent, this is how it should be. I can't make excuses. I can't say the reason why this person is doing X, Y, and Z, but this is the way things should go because you're a child they're an adult.
Yeah.
So I get it wholeheartedly.
So I have a little bit of a different view. And I'm going to say this first. I never taught my son about Santa Claus. I let him formulate his own opinion at a very young age. When he was 3, he asked about Santa Claus. He asked, could he make Santa Claus some cookies? He woke up the next morning, the cookies were still there. We baked them. That's what he asked for, but the cookies were still there. When he turned 8, he asked me, is there a Santa Claus? And I said, what do you think? And he said, I believe that there is no Santa Claus. I said, why? He said, because every time I get gifts, you are happy when I open the gifts, not Santa Claus. So thinking about his response to those things that I didn't even tell him, I don't feel like I need to tell you everything. Some of those things, I have to have that happy balance. I have to be okay with saying, what do you think, son? And then taking his response and responding to him the way that he needs in that moment, at that time, and at that age level. I wrote down that I do not make excuses for your father, but I do protect you from the things that I know may hurt you. I'm not going to make excuses, but I'm going to protect you. And then there has to be a limit to what I say to him because he's a kid. So I feel like there were times that his dad was supposed to come in town and he didn't come. I decided that instead of seeing the hurt in your eyes, I'm not going to tell you he's coming. When he gets here, it'll be a surprise. But that was what I decided to do when he was young. Now my child is 13. Your dad's supposed to come this weekend. Please make sure you have your bag packed. If your daddy comes, that's great, which 99, because of the father that my son has, 99% of the times he shows up. If he doesn't, it's not up to me to tell you why. If you want to know why, you need to talk to your father, But once again, it's a different type of relationship. I protect Bryson. I do not make excuses for anybody else. And I set limits. So those are the 3 things that I think that gives him that love benchmark. Now, he knows his daddy loves him unconditionally. And I do a check-in with him on a very regular basis to see where his emotions are. What do you want to do this summer, son? What do you because he's of age now. And when he was young, I made sure I protected him. I did not make excuses and I set limits, not just from me, but from his daddy, his aunties, his uncles, his cousins, everybody, So I just made sure that I built that around every relationship. So when it came to me, him, and his dad's relationship, there was no difference. It was just the same. And it's what he's always known. So, I look at it from a little different vein because his father is in his life. Me, y'all gonna be surprised, but I grew up in a very similar situation as my son did. So we're perpetuating the same type of thing. My mom and my daddy, they weren't together. And yes, I did say my mom and my daddy because I'm a daddy's girl. I'm a mama's girl too. But, my dad did not live in the house with us, but he and my mom, they were able to keep a cordial relationship for my upbringing, but I vowed that there would not be a man in my life that didn't understand the relationship that I had with my son's father as it pertains to my son. That's something that we talked about early on when we started dating, because this relationship has been thriving. We want to make sure that it's thriving. I want to make sure this is somebody who understands that I communicate with my son's dad. I want to make sure it's somebody who knows that I set limits. I protect and I don't make excuses in any situation, any part of the relationship in any part of the relationships that I engage in.
That's good. And I clearly see, of course, why your situation is different. You're talking about somebody who was there.
Yes.
There is a whole different kind of strength that you have to console your child, your crying child who has what I call the Superman complex, for his dad who's not there, that he longs for, idolizes in a sense because his dad is a fantasy to him, right? And to find the strength to console your child and to tell your child that his dad loves him when you telling him that about somebody that at the time you hated and that you 1000% do not believe love your child. When you find strength, to have to say your dad loves you, how he's treating you what love looks like.
Mm-hmm.
It's not how you should be treated from someone who loves you, but your dad loves you. You'll eventually have the relationship with your dad. Let's pray. We're going to pray. We're going to ask God, to fix the situation so that you can have the relationship that you want to have. You got to find a whole different kind of strength that you didn't know you had to be able to console your child in that way. So for me, those were the boundaries.
Yes.
But because of that fantasy, because of that Superman complex, and because I didn't want him to be emotionally damaged when he became an adult, I had to say, this is not how people who love you treat you. This is not how you should treat the people that you love. Mm-hmm. I get it. Like I get what you're saying completely. And I even though my situation was very different, I agree with your approach. Now the whole Santa Claus thing, a different kind of mama. I believe in magic and and imagination and stuff. But in the same sense, when Jaden got to a certain age, there was a time that I was honest with him, and I was okay with being honest with him, about Santa Claus. So even that, your approach, like I even being in a different part of the world, and that's just meaning in different, circumstances and situations, like I clearly understand your position, if that makes sense.
Yes, and I understand yours. And I think that's one thing that allows us to be able to have this conversation, because our situations are different, then our approach has to be different. Mm-hmm. If our situations were the same, I think that we would have a lot more similar, but there are things that I refuse to say on a video that have happened, you know what I mean? Yeah. That I just can't go to, that I wish I could, and maybe I will on my own podcast. Find on Wine, check it out. I'm gonna get started back on Monday. Hey, I forgot my house sleep. But there are things that I encountered that were very similar to things in this book, although it wasn't as extreme, but our love benchmark is totally different because of circumstances. But I also mentioned my mom and my dad because we talked about last week that our experiences kind of shape how we respond to things. Yep. So me being able to see that prior allowed me to make adjustments to what I had seen. Like I didn't like the way my mom and my daddy handled this. So when I move into this, I'm going to tread this way. I'm going to do this. I didn't like the way my mom and my dad treated me in regards to this. So when I move forward, I'm going to do this. I didn't like the way my mom, my stepdad, and my dad interacted in this. So I'm going to move like this. So my experiences really did shape what I wanted to happen. But I had control because my situation was totally different, and since my situation was different, my approach was different. Not saying that anything that anybody else does is wrong, but just giving a different vantage point.
Right. I love it. You said something too, that made, like, you said something about expectations, and then like going back to what we talked about last week about, what we saw. My mom and dad were together. So for me, this was foreign territory. And then his paternal grandparents, to my knowledge anyway, are still together. And so my expectation was, if this guy is coming from a household where mom and dad are still together, then of course he's going to, do right by his kids. Now, I don't know, the stability or the nature of what he saw growing up. I only know that they were together. And I know that those details that I don't know, are important. Right.
Yeah. Yes, they are. They are. What was your third point?
So my third thing that I wanted us to talk about, which I kind of mentioned it when we was talking at the beginning of chapter 6, because chapter 6, of course, talk about the relationship between, our relationship with our mom, and why it's important for, as moms, us to do that healing work for our children's sake. One of the things I said that, when you talk about raising boys, we all have boys. I think we all will agree that as women, we can't teach our boys, how to be men. I think we'll all agree with that. But what I don't think is often talked about or really put in concrete, I guess, if you will, or itemized, is what would you all say? Like, what are the things that you know for sure that your role is as a mom raising your boy? And the sentence that I underlined was actually a couple sentences, but I'm gonna read it. It says, so then, what factors into the makeup of a good person? What life experiences alter the likelihood or degree of good in a person? As you ponder the answer to these questions, do so considering that the mom figure in a person's life is the gatekeeper to their ingredients of good. So I wanted to ask y'all, like, have you ever, because I haven't, like, I've thought about some things, of course, because in my position and in talking to a lot of single moms, I do need to be able to defend when I say, you're a woman, you can't teach your boy how to be a man. Because there's an other side to that. There are things that we are responsible for putting into our boys, right? So what do you think, or what are some of the important things that you think our role is as, you know, the gatekeeper of the good that become of our boys?
I think that we're the ones who help to become the gentlemen that they should be. Because as a female, we know that a lot of men these days don't know what a gentleman is supposed to be able to do, that the door opening thing, even though sometimes it's like a man can be like, you're supposed to hold the door open for a woman, but like I was showing my sons the little cute thing about walking down the sidewalk, you know, about how a guy should be walking on the side where the road is. Mm-hmm. Like, I was never taught that. It was kind of like something that popped up, but it makes total sense, right? And so I'm like, yeah. And so I sent it to my sons, and like I saw something else that the purpose of a man walking down the stairs first is to make sure that if the female falls or, you know, stumbles, or to help her down. I was like, of course, I definitely want that. Boys, you need to know this. This is some very good, important messages. And so, like right now, like sometimes men just assume that kids grow up and they just know, or maybe it's just people. Because as a teacher, I feel like I'm looking at my husband and he's like, this is what we need to do it. I'm like, but did you show him how to do it? I don't know if that's a teach thing or what, but in my house, I need you to do this right. Because if I got to go back over this and do this again, I'm going to lose my life. So I think it's like the little details, kind of, sort of. It's important for you to grab onto the details, because I can tell with the young men that are working in my job, the ones who have been raised a certain kind of way. Like, I got this fella, and I was like, boy, your mama did a number on you. You need to high five on her, because I like that. Then there's someone like, no, son, I need you to tuck that shirt in. Don't come in here looking like that no more, because I don't want nobody to email you, blah, blah, blah. It's like, I give him that little 2.2 cents because obviously somebody did. So I feel like you may get those Casanova men, because my youngest son is very much Casanova, but I think that is his Nana's part that's put into him. Like, he's like, mommy, like, I'm down today. I'm so down today. I was like, oh. He looked at me. He's like, mommy, don't worry about it. everything's gonna be okay. He had this voice, and it was like, okay. And I gave him a hug. He's like, don't worry, because everything is just gonna be fine. And then like I just knew it was coming, because he was gonna be like, yeah, because Jesus said, and I was like, this sounds like an after school special story, but it's okay. Thank you. I appreciate all of that. And so good. And every time he's talking, I can hear his Nana in his voice. And so I'm like, yeah, that's like, my son wasn't there for that. My daughter is not trying to hear none of that. But Ben, that is he trying to marry her. He don't even know it yet. That's his first love. So I think that is our job, is to give him those soft spots for the future loves that they find for real, to give them what this is who I want to give all of this to. So yeah, that when I say that, that's what I mean. Like, we give them the details, the soft spots, the corners.
I like that
details
specifically, because women are detail oriented. Like, I love that.
All right, 3 kids, all of them straight different.
I don't know how to answer the question, because I don't know how to answer the question. And y'all know I'm a talker. So, and I'm sure everybody in the YouTube podcast world, they can see that I am the talker of the group. I have a very hard time answering that question, because I know I can't teach everything, but I will try to teach all things, you know? So I can't teach you how to stand up and pee. I ain't got that, you know? But I will tell you to wipe the seat off, you know? Like, there's just certain things that I just feel like I think women have a tendency to pick up the slack regardless, because we're going to make it happen, you know? And not to take away from those good men in the world and those good fathers, but when they're not around, we're going to try our best to pick up the slack. I cannot say at all that I've done anything perfect at all, but I have tried my best. And trying my best has shown my son that in all things, you need to try your best. There are spiritual aspects of it, loving aspects of it, that independent aspect of it that I show that might be a little bit too much for my husband sometimes, you know, but I try to show him like, okay, mom's doing this today because this needs to happen in the future, you know? So that goes back to that detail. I got to make sure that this is built up. I need you to see that there's trash on the floor and not walk by it 5 times, you know, like there's just certain things that it's just picking up. I can't even answer the question, because I don't know. It's a tough question. Important thing. I'm gonna have to catch that one next week. I don't know.
For me, raising our children in a home where both of us are here, I guess to add to what Tracy said, where my husband doesn't provide or fill in those gaps, that's for me to come in and provide that. So the first thing that I wrote was I show him what a nurturer is, because my husband is going to approach it from the aspect of, I'm raising a man. I can't be soft on him, because the world is not going to be soft on him, where I'm going to show him that softer side. It's okay to be upset. It's okay to cry. It's okay to be in tune with your emotions. And my son, for the most part, is like Denise's baby, is, well, Mama, you okay? Ma, it's late. You're not home. My daughter, she like, girl, she good. But my son is gonna check in and say, Ma, you need anything? Ma, you want, like, that is him. But I know that he is that way because he does see his father be that way, but I'm also that way with them. I'm constantly showing them by example. I also put, I feel like I set that example of how a woman should treat him, how his future wife should treat him based on a relationship that him and my husband have. And then learning how to tap into that sensitive side, because some men, not all, but some men may not show, like we've talked about, that emotional side. So you don't want to raise up a young man that doesn't know how to deal with emotions, or, you know, understand if other people are being emotional, well, I'm just going to sit here and look, because as women, We don't want that. We want you to ask, are you okay? How can I help, babe? And so I don't want him to grow up like that. So I feel like I balance where my husband is not going to do. I would do and model for him. But I think the main thing is that nurturer piece that he sees me model.
So we also, and I'm about to be devil's advocate because I like that. I ain't finna raise nobody to be a mama's boy. And my son is probably a mama's boy, and I just don't know it. But I don't want him to be, like it's such a fine line, because I'm like, I don't want you to be overly sensitive. Get over it. It's fine. You're a guy. But then I'm like, but baby, it's okay. It's okay. You got a 53. We'll get a 90 next time. You know, when his dad is like, you stayed up, you studied, you didn't take your time, you didn't read, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, but son, but then again, I'm like, but your daddy right, you know? So it's kind of like, I don't want to raise you to think that you have to be under me. Because now that, like, it was just me and my son for 11 years, you know, it was just us. Well, you know, give or take. It was just us for 11 years. And it was me and him. We go on trips together. We do stuff together. You know, it's just always been that. Now we have a man in the house, and I see the facial expressions sometimes of my husband when I'm interacting with my son. He looking at me like, why are you even? But you know, there's a fine line.
Right.
Because just like his daughter's here, I'm sorry, our daughter's here, our son is here, you know, because we are a blended family. It's like certain things that he does, and I'm like, don't do that. And he'll look at me and I don't do that, but we're trying to you know, just no. Maybe I gave him a little too much nurture, you know, and not enough nature. Not forcing him to go outside and play. And now, you know, he don't want to. He all right. He in the house with mama. We good. You go downstairs, I'll be, you know, not forcing him to do those things have kind of stifled him into where he is a little bit. So I feel a little guilty about that. But, you know, now we 11 through 13, we've been picking it up, you know, so it's different. I don't know. I'm still at a loss.
Good. I think I really like Denise's, when she said details, something about details just struck me. Like, because I think about like when I get to go with Doc on his photo shoots, like one of the reasons why he will sometimes take me is because women pay attention to details that men don't often pick up on. And when she, you know, related the details to life and things, you know, that, you know, they need in life, and kind of it went with what Adrian said, like you fill in the gaps. To me, filling in the gaps are the details. Mm-hmm. But you said something, you said nature, nurture. Like I think about a man teaching a boy how to be a man. It's natural, it's nature. Whereas we are by nature nurturers. And so we give them that lens, which still is the nurturing part, is paying attention to the details. Y'all
Put that thing together.
The doors of the church are open.
You got to play.
We're going to pass around the collection plate.
You got it.
And sing the hymn.
Hey, it's on page number 39.
That thing just blessed me real good.
Oh, there is a message in the message.
Oh, now.
I have to say also, I was literally talking about page 39 when you talked about safe spaces. I feel like we as moms provide the safe space for our children. You know, whether it's our sons, our daughters, we provide a space where you could just let it hang, you know, just let it all out, just talk. They ain't gonna talk to their daddies like they talk to us, you know.
Walk right past them.
Come on.
Sorry, guys, I am not that person. Y'all can be that person. I am not. Tony be having these, what are those called? Those booths? Like people be in the booth on those reality shows. They be putting the booths and be talking all this stuff. Tony be having a car booth in there with the kids. He just be picking people up and be having like conversations. I'm like, so where your brother at? He's in the car with Dad. I'm like, what?
The four of us, we got so much in common, but we so different.
Because when Teresa said about passing the trash, I was like, I missed that part. And I'm so thankful for Doc now because he gets that. He has been teaching Jaden that stuff, you know, like the role of the man in the household. Like,
we don't have a role in the household. We take shifts. Like, I be like, you not gonna be the only one taking out trash. Brianna, you gonna be a single lady. Take care of yourself. Take that trash out there. I be like, Dewan, bust them suds. Ben, start making some biscuits. Let's do this. We're all in this together. Everybody doing something. Like Tony can be like, oh, we got a girl now. We're not whooping nobody's butts no more. No, I'm tearing everybody up. I don't care who here. I don't care if your mama's here. I don't care. Where's the Holy Ghost? He can get some too. All I know is you can get some.
Not the Holy Ghost.
Not the Holy Ghost. Lord, she don't know what she's talking about.
God, Daddy, she's sorry.
right.
Her bad, Lord.
My grandmother is up there. She's probably shaking her head. Sorry about that, Mom. My bad.
Everybody.
Yeah. So as the listeners and future readers know, or current readers know, we are totally different. Everybody has a viewpoint with your experiences or your life. There is no judgment around here.
Yeah, because you said something about some grades. I was like 57. Oh my God. No, he did.
3. And y'all know how that went around here. It was, you've been playing the piano for 6 days. Because you can't get on them but the piano.
Your whole life is over. You done hit the 50s.
New songs.
You better pull out the Power Rangers. Because that's all you playing with.
They get real creative.
From the bottom. Some sticks, put them things together. Mm-mm.
He did a retake.
You can actually talk to your brothers and sisters now? Oh, yes, because you got nothing.
my heart was, but you know, it comes and goes. It'll be fine. But as we bring chapter 7 to a close, I am really looking forward to chapter 8. But let me say this, Latoya. I love the way you give those nuggets of goodness at the end. If you ain't get this, and know that this is how you move forward. And that is one of the most important things in a book of this magnitude that we each can get from it every single week, whether it is our specific situation in chapter 7 or not. You can take something away from it because you might have got something that was for you in chapter 6 if you didn't get it in chapter 7. And I think that that's really important when reading a book, any book, because we know we done read some books in this book club that we ain't calling no names, GU.
Lyle told me I need some wine.
GU needed to get through. All right, that was inappropriate. Cut that part out.
This was good. This is a good session. So 8 and 9 for next week?
Yes.
Okay.
8 and 9 or 2 through 9, depending on who you are.